What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Tag Team, the Pokemon Trading Card Game's premier podcasting duo. My name is Riley Holbrook, joined as always by my good friend JW Krewall. JW, how's it going today?
Hey, it's going pretty good, Riley. I just finished doing a green tea herbal face mask with my
Wow.
wife.
Do you feel like your pores have been cleansed? Do you feel like holier now?
It was definitely a minty feeling going on, and there's still a little mint residue
Yeah.
coming off. So I would say overall success. It dried, like I would say overall success, but it like some of it didn't dry, even though we left it on for as long as the packaging said. But then the packaging, it wasn't made in the United States. So there are a lot of typos,
Ah,
a lot of extra spaces before commas.
you love those.
And so you question
The
the
integrity of the brand.
validity, the integrity of the brand,
Sure.
but it was a fun experience nonetheless. I haven't really done any home beauty, home beautification before. So,
I've definitely never tried a face mask.
okay.
Um, I do have one. My friend went to Japan and got a Jigglypuff face mask and brought it back for me. Um, but I just kind of keep it for display because
Okay.
it's so funny.
Okay.
Uh,
Well, maybe one episode in the future we can just do dual face masks.
yeah, like a beautification episode.
Yeah, that'd be good.
I don't know if that really is on brand. Not gonna lie.
Okay, well, it could be a completely off-brand episode. We do things that we
Fair.
don't normally do. Like maybe we talk about Yu-Gi-Oh metagame that day.
Yeah, I don't know if I have a lot to say about it. I'd have to probably do a significant amount of research heading in.
But how's your day going, Riley?
It's going well. Certainly a lot going on. I'm very busy lately. My friend, who lives in the apartment across the way from mine, got a like when I say across the way, I mean like across the courtyard. Um,
Okay.
she just got two little baby kittens, and they're so cute. And so I've been hanging out and playing with them. Um, Not to ignore my own cats, because I am playing a lot with them as well. Um, and they get quite jealous. Like I'll walk back home
With the
after,
scent.
yeah, and Mello
Yeah.
will walk up to me, and she's just like, mm-mm-mm, I don't like that. That is not cool. So,
Yeah.
but
Yeah,
it's been really fun.
definitely angered your cats. I feel like an angry cat is not something I would want. The urine and the
Yeah, Mello.
scratching.
My cats don't really do anything too crazy. Mello's more of like a passive aggression. Like if she's mad at me and I'm on my computer, she'll. I have my first monitor is like right in front of me, and my second one is off to the right and a little bit
Mhm,
behind my first monitor. So what
mhm.
Mello will do is she'll get behind the first monitor and stick her like entire body in front of the second monitor, so I can't see it. And
Gotcha.
she knows I don't like that.
That's pretty unusual.
Yeah, I should do it all the time when I'm like on phone calls at work, because
Okay.
I'll put like the screen share on my second monitor, um, for A, because it's bigger, but B, because then if I get like a chat notification, like someone Teams message me over Microsoft Teams, it
Yeah.
won't appear on the second monitor. It'll appear on the first monitor.
Gotcha.
Um,
Gotcha.
but so I always share that monitor, and whenever I'm on the phone, Mello doesn't like that because I'm not paying attention to her, but I'm still talking to people, um, and so she'll always like get in front of the screen. I have to move her.
Cats are jealous, man.
Yeah, they do get jealous, but all all fun though. All fun. I do love my kitties, and I like the new kittens a lot too. Anything
That's
else
great.
exciting going on in your life, JW?
Man, I can't say that there is. Just been doing I don't know if I've told you this, but the last time we talked I was thinking about getting into real estate, but now the move is coding. So I think we
Coding.
maybe did talk about that a little bit in an Among Us game, but yeah, I'm working towards maybe doing a boot camp and kind of getting up to speed right now on what it would look like to be in one. So I've been doing a bunch of coding modules and things online, and that's been pretty stimulating. I don't know that I necessarily call it fun because it's been kind of things that are a little maybe uninteresting. You're just kind of going through the motions and learning a lot of the building blocks of code,
Sure.
but it certainly is stimulating, and it's things that kind of a repetitive process that the language of coding is interesting in a sense to me, that it can be so many different things. So
Oh,
yeah,
I mean, for sure.
that's
I obviously like coding. I do it at my job.
yeah.
So,
There you go. So it's pretty cool. Do you what program do you use?
you mean like language?
Or language? Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, we code in what's called M. It's a it's basically only used for medical record software.
Yeah.
Um, but I know uh, like 5 languages right now.
Okay.
I took a lot of different classes in college as part of my
Gotcha.
major. So
Gotcha. Yeah, as far as I understand, like the languages aren't the end all be all.
yeah, once
Like
you
they're pretty fluid in the
once
sense
you
that if you understand
yeah,
the core
exactly.
principles, then you're gonna be able to maneuver around anything.
Yeah, because a lot of it is more about like, um, I hate to say like programmatically, but like it's about understanding like programmatically how these things fit together.
Right.
And once you understand like, okay, yeah, this is how I do this piece of functionality in this language, then it's all about just fitting the blocks together. The blocks sometimes look different, smell different, taste different, but they're all the same fundamentally.
Yeah. Yeah. So I've been having a lot of fun with Java. That's what
Interesting.
I've been learning. Interesting. Why is that?
Java's just not. I don't like Java that much, but it's fine.
Really? Okay. Yeah. I think I've been looking at a little bit of like .NET and Java, and I like the syntax a little bit more in Java.
Yeah.
But I mean, I suppose that everyone has their own preferences.
Yeah. I mean, no judgment, of course.
No judgment, but I'm judging you.
I'm not judging you actually. I think it's really cool that you're pursuing something new.
Yeah.
So
Well, yeah.
I was gonna
Go
say
ahead.
let's jump right into it though.
Exactly.
So we wanted to start off today with a little bit of a look into the next month or so of Pokemon. So for
Yeah.
the unaware, the Players Cup was so popular they decided to make a sequel. So Players Cup 2 is on the horizon. Did they say it was is it Players Cup 2 officially, or is it like Players Cup Autumn or something?
No, I think it's Players Cup II. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's Players Cup Roman numeral 2. Which
That's
is
right, yeah.
So sick.
I know. It looks a lot more official, but for sure. Players Cup 2 starting in 5 days on September 28th and lasting until October 26th. So just under a month's worth of Pokemon that will matter, which is pretty interesting.
Yeah,
And it will
interesting is
matter for
definitely one way.
everyone. It will matter for everyone,
Yeah.
not just the people that have enough, tickets or, things like that. Everyone that has an online account that has logged in before, some arbitrary date that they set it said like between June and September, they'll get those tournament keys. And so you're going to see a lot of participation as opposed to Players Cup 1, which is really gatekept by that ticket system.
Yeah, so let's talk about how that system has evolved. So Players Cup 1, the format was you could enter any number of the trading card game online tournaments, which the requisite to do that was the tournament tickets. And those tickets, unfortunately, are kind of difficult to get. So some players felt like they didn't have a chance. A lot of players felt like it would be basically a ticket war. And I don't want to say Players Cup 1 flopped, because clearly there was a lot of participation. It was a success on the whole. But it was really difficult to get some players motivated to participate. Players Cup 2, by contrast, has the new tournament key system, which are allocated to you, like JW said, if you have participated in Pokemon Trading Card Game Online in the last 3 months. And what those will do is every player gets X amount, that amount being 50 for this Players Cup, and I think it's 1 ticket or 1 key per tournament, and that's how you're going to qualify instead. So it gives everyone a level playing field in terms of how much one can participate in tournaments. It gives everyone a level playing field to just like what you're getting going in, which was
Right.
not really the case with the first one, where it was
Right.
very ambiguous like what that ticket system would really amount to.
Yeah, right. And I think a lot of people, and I think even myself included to an extent, kind of over analyzed the amount of work that it would take
Oh,
to
for
get
sure.
into the Players Cup. The bar ended up being a lot lower than you or I really thought, but I think the principle again still kind of remains the same as like, well, you shouldn't really have a pay to play system in that kind of way on an online thing if you don't give enough people like enough time to actually prepare for that, because surely
Right.
there were some people, and you look at big content creators that do a lot of tournaments or whatever it is, that just kind of use their tournament tickets as you go, but then you have some people that just hoard them and never play in tournaments, and obviously we're at a huge advantage, but that is all wiped away. The slate is completely clean for this Players Cup 2, and I couldn't be happier.
Yeah, I'm definitely a lot more excited about it. And I had actually do have quite a bit of tickets myself. But even then, I felt so demotivated because I thought it would be, like you said, we kind of overanalyzed how much people would be going for this. Um, and I thought it would just be such an astronomical amount of tickets. And I was just like, this is absurd. Like, I don't even want to be a part of that.
Right.
Um, Whereas this one is much more clearly defined. You can go at your own pace. You don't feel like you're cramped down by the pressure to constantly do more and more like you were in the first cup.
Right.
So I'm really excited to get into this one. So before we do anything, we can just briefly go over how the game itself is looking. We've kind of harped on this a bunch of times now, so I don't want to spend more than a minute on it. ADP and Eternatus still standing at the top. Crushing Hammer finding its way into quite a few lists now. Pokemon Catcher finding its way into pretty much every Zacian list at this point. Um, I mean, we kind of reached the point where those two are the monoliths of the format that stand above everything
Mhm.
else, and you're either playing them or playing specifically to beat them. Would you agree,
Yeah.
JW?
I would 100% agree. There are some other decks that kind of fit in. You look at the things like Pikarom, you look at the things like Frostmoth, Baby Blacephalon,
Mewtwo to an extent.
Decidueye. There's a number of other decks that can compete as Centiskorch, but really when you look at it, probably the big, and at least for me, like the highest winning percentages for my testing have very easily come with ADP and Eternatus.
Yeah, I mean, I think they've really set themselves apart in the format, and we've given our thoughts on those decks more than a handful of times. So I don't want to spend too much time talking about it, like I said.
Mm-hmm.
What I'm more interested in talking about is what the approach to the Players' Cup as a whole will look like. And we were kind of
Right.
musing about this before the cast. Um, JW, I don't know if you have any preliminary thoughts about what your approach to the Players' Cup will be. Like, when are you going to use your tickets? How are you
Yeah.
going to approach like deck building? What are your thoughts heading into the specifics of this event?
Yeah. Well, since it is in the current format, I don't believe that we will include any Champions Path in the duration of the Players Cup 2. Um, we have a pretty good idea of what the metagame looks like. And so that should inform us when we bring our deck choices. And for me, I will always, going into a big tournament, if it's a one-time event, like I'll always focus on like 3 to 5 decks heading into that tournament. Obviously, this is a little bit more, wide scale, being 50 individual tournaments that I could change decks for every one. But I think the whole point remains largely the same, is that I've been testing, very specifically like 5 decks, and I have all those decks and kind of know the exact matchup spreads of each of those decks. And so heading into the Players Cup, I'm going to know, okay, I want to lead with this deck and I want to play a certain number of tournaments with, ADP. That's looking to me like the just hands down the best deck in this format. And then if I find that that's not working, eventually I'll switch. Now the question becomes, when would be the optimal time to switch decks? And that's something we can talk about in a second. But you bring up the question, when should you start? I think that's very valid. So we have a whole month to play our 50 tournaments. And so should you begin, and blow them all at the start? Should you space them out? Should you play everything in the middle? Should you play everything at the end? Should you enter all these tournaments right at the end? And I think probably at least what I'm going to do is to gauge the general interest and general level at the beginning by maybe doing a couple of tournaments a day for probably the first week. not blow all the tickets, but just kind of to accrue some data on what other people are playing and how my deck kind of fits into this online metagame that is largely completely different than, you know, a competitive metagame, right? You have to take that into account. It's like every single person that has a PTCGO account will get these codes. So the metagame is going to be even crazier than what it would be for like a regionals, right? So taking it a little bit slowly in that first week, trying to gauge what everyone's playing and what kind of a general metagame is, and then really going into it in that early second week, third week, and using all the tournament tickets. That's going to be my strategy, not waiting until the end, because I think there's going to be a lot of people that do end up waiting till the end and maybe get burned because they're going to have to play against everyone else that's waiting till the end. I have a sneaking feeling that the beginning of the Players' Cup, or that first to second week, around there, like late first week, early second week, is going to be probably the ideal time to actually like use most of your tournament keys.
Yeah, I totally agree with you about the end being like the worst time to do it. I have a feeling, I mean, just generally speaking, if you're playing at the end, you have the most on the line, and like it's more of an active choice, right? Like early on, you know, you could just have a TCGO account, see that you have these keys, and just play in early on just because you have them, or even midway through. But if someone's like coming in towards the end, that means they know what they're trying to do, and they want to get it done. So it's going to be players who are probably pretty good, but were also too lazy to do it before, which to me seems like a pretty large subset. I don't know if you agree. I think you're implying that you do with your earlier statements. So I think the end will be kind of chaotic, kind of a mess. I actually think playing pretty early on will lead to a fair amount of success. I think even if a lot of good players are playing at that time, there'll be so many players that it won't really matter because the pool will be so diluted. And the same applies, honestly, to those first couple weeks. And I don't think the metagame is like shifting anywhere. So it's not like, you know, it's not like you're gaining a metagame benefit from waiting per se. Not that I'm like counteracting a point of yours or anything. It's just a point of mine. So that's kind of where I'm leaning, is I kind of want to just get it done with relatively soon. If me personally, I probably won't actually do that in practice. I'll probably kind of burn them slowly throughout the month, just because I don't really have the time to grind them all out at once, unless I really sit down on like a Saturday and just do it all, which to me doesn't sound very fun either.
Right.
But that's what I would, if you're like really trying to grind in, I would say that the earlier on, the better. I think people will be less invested early on.
And then do you think, Riley, it would be better to, you know, sit down and dedicate, you know, one day or one evening to really grinding a lot of your tournaments out? Or would you say that you would rather spread them out over, you know, a couple days or a week or 2 weeks?
I mean, to me, I'd rather spread them out for a couple reasons. One, just because for me, time constraint is like an issue. But on a larger scale, I think burnout is like real. And if you're just playing 6 hours straight of these TCGO tournaments and you're waiting like arbitrary amounts of time between every round, I mean, it would be more than 6 hours, I think, to blast through 50 of those. It'd be a lot. So even if you're going through like 8 hours of tournaments, and yeah, like a regional is comparable to that, but you know, you're going to get burnt out, and TCGO is not the same as playing in real life, and you don't have like the energy of like hanging out with your friends the whole time like you do at a regional. So it's going to kind of get grating, in my opinion. And I really enjoy like playing TCG and playing TCGO, but I know if I'm just sitting there like playing for a while, eventually I'll stop paying as much attention. And this is something that's specific to TCGO, because you know, I'm on my computer. I'm doing other stuff too.
Right.
But
you're
it's by
definitely not
nature.
one-track minded when you're playing TCGO.
No, and so I'm probably doing other stuff. Like I'm gonna get less and less interested as my day goes on.
Yeah.
You know, I'll be haphazardly doing what I think is appropriate, but maybe not. Isn't really like thoughtfully done. So I say just spare yourself the trouble of having to worry about that even, and just take it at the pace that feels appropriate to you. If I could actually make a macro recommendation to everyone listening, I would say just start early on, burn a couple tickets a day. If you feel motivated, go for more, but like don't force yourself in any pigeonhole. Just do what feels right for you, and you'll
Right.
probably get your best result.
Right. That's good. And ultimately, I think too, we are saying that this Players Cup 2 likely will be more competitive given this more equal playing ground, but there's still 256 open slots to make kind of this second phase of the tournament. So it should be relatively easy if you put your best foot forward throughout the duration of your 50 tickets. Like it should be attainable for anyone that really truly wants to do it. And so don't think too hard. I mean, take our recommendations and ultimately we're just speculating. So it kind of doesn't really matter if you have another take on it. Then by all means, you want to wait till the last second, and we've been saying don't do that. Like by all means, do that if that's what you feel is going to get you a better result. I think too, Riley, we should talk about what to do if you or how you're going to go about selecting decks, because I think there are some people that might play a tournament with a deck and then it loses in the first round, and then they might immediately switch decks, and then they might lose them again in the first round, and then they might switch decks again, and then there might also be other people that just play one deck for the duration of their tournament tickets. They'll just play one deck for 50 tournament keys. Do you have any thoughts on what makes sense in terms of whether or not you would switch decks, and what would those reasons be for you for switching decks?
There's a couple reasons I could see. For me, if I could even consider myself just playing a deck that I just really enjoy and I think is semi decent, and switching it to that occasionally as opposed to just going for like meta monoliths. Generally speaking, I think you should avoid making snap judgments based on the results of individual tournaments. So, there's always going to be a fair amount of RNG going into these, and RNG maybe isn't always the appropriate word, but you don't know who's going to come into these individual tournaments on a given hour. You don't know what decks they're going to be playing. You don't know if they're going to be like hard teching against certain decks. And so using individual or even small subsets of tournaments to inform like your overall performance is kind of a downward slope, I would say. It's a slippery slope. If you have a deck that's consistent and works, that's going to be the real key, because there's going to be so many factors that are out of your control in these individual tournaments. So you don't want to be like, oh, my ADP deck that gets off turn 2 Altered Creation or turn 1 Altered Creation, 90% of the time, it got just completely pooped on by this random fairy attacker deck or something.
Yeah.
Don't get immediately discouraged by that. Like, stay the course for a little bit. Make sure there's no macro meta trends. Like, and it's especially hard if you lose in the first round, because you could lose to the person who ends up like winning the tournament and they just had a really good deck and played really well. And that's just your luck of the draw. There's no seeding. You get what you get.
Right. And then I think particularly too in a best of one format where going first or second can really make or break either deck. It's important to just keep that in mind too, is like, if you happen to go, you're forced to go first and your deck of choice is Centiskorch, obviously that's not a good place to be in, and you lose, a few tournaments really early. Well, if you're really committed to playing Centiskorch, then again, give it a little bit more time to let that even out in terms of, where you start and how far you get in that tournament. I think for me, looking at how many tournaments it would take me for like bad results to influence my deck choice, would probably be about 10. Like, I am testing before I go to the tournaments. I mean, that's a big point as well. Like, don't use the tournaments to try to figure out what to play. Go into the tournaments knowing what you're going to play, like being confident in a deck that you think, yes, this could win the Players Cup. This could win a regional. This could do well at a real event. And then use the tournaments as your as the culmination of all that testing that you've done.
Right.
And so probably about 10 or so tournaments I would give myself before I would consider switching decks. And I think, I don't know, maybe you have some thoughts on that, but I think that that's probably a good threshold. Like 20% of the tournament goes by, or 20% of your tickets are gone. I think that's probably a good time to stop and reflect on how you've done, either with the deck, reflecting whether or not the skill level is appropriate for you, and whether or not you should consider switching to a deck that maybe is better against what you've been seeing.
Yeah, I would say somewhere in the like 5 to 10 range is about right. It's hard to say because if you lose round one, you miss out on a lot of insight about how the rest of the tournament looked. But let's say even you're making it to the finals of all of these tournaments, and so you've seen 3 rounds of all these tournaments, and you're 5 tournaments in, and you notice like consistent trends in terms of how the decks are looking or built. You might not switch decks, but you might change like a couple of cards and be like, okay, there's clearly a lot of this deck, so I'm going to play Wait and See Hammer or something. Be at the same time, like be rigid and confident in your decisions, but also be thoughtful about what that decision is and like why it should evolve. It's definitely a balancing act. You gotta be spinning these different plates, and whenever one starts to tumble, you gotta start spinning it again.
Right. Ultimately, I think, Riley, there's no silver bullet that we can give to any listener. But you're always free to message me if you have questions on how your performance has been going. I mean, I'm always an open book to try to give any amount of advice that I can if you're really struggling with a certain problem or a certain deck or something like that. But ultimately, be confident in the decks that you've tested heading into the tournament. I think that's just the biggest piece of advice, because I think there are a lot of players out there that I know that are going to be discouraged. Maybe they, like losing the first round, but their deck is very capable of carrying them to the Players Cup, but they lose in the first round of like the first 2 tournaments, and then they're looking to immediately like switch up their whole list, tech it out for certain things that just don't make sense, or just change the deck entirely. And I don't think that's really the way to go. I think you should trust your intuition, trust your testing, and give each deck, or at least give your first deck, the fair shake that it needs to produce good results.
Just definitely don't tech for Mad Party when you see it online.
Riley, you're definitely going to try to qualify with Mad Party, huh?
I think I could do it.
All right, that's a challenge.
That actually leads me into another question, though. And this is something, my last thing I want to do with the Players Cup. So last Players Cup, people thought the point threshold would be really high. It clearly wasn't. Obviously, there's more level set playing ground. I imagine there'll be like more universal participation. Do you have any idea what that threshold will look like? Do you think it will? I think obviously it'll be higher than before. Do you think it'll be significantly higher? Do you think it will be, a small percent increase?
I mean, it's hard to say. I have to imagine that it'll be significantly higher, but it's tough to give an estimate. I think we'll probably see, within the first week, like if we can extrapolate a little bit better.
I even feel like the first week will be so hard. I feel like so many people will be, they'll be on Monday of the last week and they're like, crap, man.
I don't know, man. It's really tough because we haven't seen anything like this before. So like trying to make an informed opinion about this is really hard, but I think there will be probably a bell curve, right, of participation levels. So you'll probably have a lot of people at the beginning, a lot of people at the end, and it'll probably dip slightly in terms of participation. But I think we still should be able to extrapolate from that and from the postings on the site, kind of a week by week, how many points like you should be at to qualify in those top 256.
Yeah, I definitely think it'll be messy as you get like towards the bottom of that.
Right.
It'll be close, I think. And the reason I ask is because what we found in the first Players Cup was people who honestly probably might not have even been trying to make it ended up making it because so many people had like given up so early.
Yeah.
And I'm curious if you think a similar thing will happen.
I don't know about that. I think just being able to have that again level playing field is very, very important, and should yield some pretty interesting results in the sense of how many people will continue to play. Like it would be interesting to see that kind of data on how many people use all of their tickets and how many people that played during this week, how well they did.
That would be really interesting data. I feel like that's the kind of data we won't get.
Right. No, of course. And I mean, I don't even know that it's like on Pokemon's end, like if they even have a tracker for that kind of stuff, but it'd just be interesting to see.
Oh, I would love to see that kind of stuff too.
Yeah. Cause then, I mean, you think about it too, Players Cup 2 is, there's a thought that there will be more in the future.
It's implied. Yeah.
Yeah. We're not seeing kind of a slowdown in Corona that we maybe could hope for, and so for the indefinite future the game will likely be online. So this will be a good litmus test for this online tournament format, and being able to try to track how it goes from this tournament will be huge to inform potential future tournaments.
Agreed.
Yeah.
I'm excited to see it unfold, that's for sure.
Me
and
too.
You can expect us to give us the lowdown as far as how we're doing, as well as tips and tricks for you all as the Players Cup 2 progresses. Moving on, though, we have our card of the week presented by JW this week. So, JW, you got me all hyped up. What you got cooked up for us?
Did I get you hyped up for it?
No, but I got hyped because you had mentioned that you had already picked it up.
Yes. Well, I'm a huge fan of this card, not necessarily this Pokemon to
unlucky.
I know. No. I mean, I like the Pokemon. It's not the best Pokemon ever. Okay, anyway, but I love this card for a lot of different reasons. But my card of the week for this week is a Prime.
Okay.
It is I mean, I don't even know if it's arguable. It's the best Prime in terms of consistency and power.
Well, I know what it is now.
It's an electric type.
Yeah.
It got one eyeball. That is Magnezone Prime. I love Magnezone Prime with its Poke Power, magnetic draw until you have 6 cards in your hand. So this was the era, when Heart Gold Soul Silver came out. This was right after we had a format that was that had Claydol pretty entrenched in the format and deck construction.
Yeah.
And so you go from Claydol, which is a stronger power, right? You put 2 on the bottom of your deck and draw up to 6. But Magnetic Draw kind of filled that void that we had by losing Claydol. Being able to draw until you had 6 in your hand was just awesome because you were able to, I mean, that's just a great ability. So, and then it also had a Blacephalon GX type attack for those of you that weren't around back in the Heart Gold Soul Silver era. Magnezone also had a Lost Burn attack. Put as many cards attached to your Pokemon as you like into the Lost Zone, and it does 50 times the number of energy in the Lost Zone. So, I mean, you look at like let's just compare Blacephalon and Magnezone. Blacephalon came out 6 years later or something like that, and still had that same damage potential that Magnezone did back in the early 2010s. And that's just crazy to me to think that the attack is essentially exactly the same.
Yeah.
The only difference being the counts, the cost. It costs 1 lightning and 1 colorless on Magnezone. 2
Magnezone's stack's actually better.
On Blacephalon. What's that?
Magnezone's stack's actually slightly better because it can get any energy off any Pokemon.
That's true. It doesn't have to just be fires. And that was a big thing when Magnezone was around, because you could play things like Rescue Energy. Yep. You could play Magnezone with fire cards. There was a Typhlosion that you could get things back with. There was Emboar when Black and White set came out. There were a lot of ways to play Magnezone that wasn't just, it wasn't a one-track mind kind of deck. And I actually got my first regionals top 8 with Magnezone in my second tournament ever. I played Magnezone and again, speaking to the power of the card, I played Magnezone with Vileplume because I thought, you know what? This was my deck theory at the time. I was like, okay, what's the best card in the format? Why don't I put it with the second best card in the format and make this wacky deck. And so I did that. And I really did believe back then Magnezone was the best card in the format. You had this insane draw potential. That was really the main reason for playing it. But then it was also a sweeper of sorts. In the late game, you could start hitting those huge numbers if you really needed to take out a threat on the opponent's side of the board.
Yeah.
And then you had Vileplume, which of course just locks everything down. So that was a really cool deck that I had created, that I invented, that like got me way farther than I should have gone, but was super hilarious. And it just always makes me remember Magnezone super fondly.
Yeah, Magnezone Prime is one of my favorite cards too, and it was before I even started playing. It was just such a cool card. I actually have the Magnabor Worlds deck. So the Emboar, Magnezone Prime, Reshiram, and it played Deoxys Rayquaza Legend as well.
That was so broken. That card was so broken, dude.
Yeah, that was the original ADP, man.
Nobody really like played it that much, though, was the thing.
That card was so good.
Yeah, that wasn't even really like that popular back then. Like it was popular enough to win worlds, but it wasn't like it was it wasn't like ADP is now, just everywhere. It was pretty kind of unusual, I guess, at the time.
Well, the thing is, it's like, yes, it can take the extra prize, and for the uninformed, Rayquaza and Deoxys Legend, or is it Deoxys Rayquaza? I think it's Deoxys and Rayquaza. It will take an extra prize with its ability. It does 150 damage, so it will knock out
body. It's body.
Body, yeah, body. It will knock out pretty much anything in front of it. It does either 140 or 150, and it'll take an extra prize card. The downside though is that Magnezone can just KO it back with 3 energy, and then it takes an additional prize card for KOing a legend. So it's a little awkward. Yeah, that's like my favorite deck to solitaire. Whenever I'm like cooking food or something, I get out my Magnabor deck and just solitaire it because it's so fun. You draw the cards, you lost burn the stuff. It's just great.
I mean, it really is amazing how versatile that card was. You played it with Emboar, you played it with Typhlosion, you could play it with Kingdra, you could play it with Yanmega, you could play it with Vileplume. It was just the perfect card because it had, and it's a synergy that we haven't seen in a long time. And Fireflame Fire brings it up in the chat. Just this great draw ability with a very, very reasonable and powerful attack. That's, it's good. I don't necessarily think that it's overpowered. It does a lot of damage. You have to get rid of the energy forever. So I think there is some balance to that. But
very rarely would you get all 6 with just Magnezone.
Right. Just an amazing card. I love it so much.
Yeah. I mean, for the more modern player, this is still like a little bit dated of an example, relatively speaking. But imagine if Octillery had Knuckle Impact, like that's what we're working with here.
Yeah, right. Or it'd be like if Zacian's ability didn't end your turn.
Yeah.
Like
that's honestly, yeah.
Yeah.
So fun. Cool. Well, thank you for sharing, JW. I love the Heart Gold Soul Silver era cards. Super fun.
Yeah, they're awesome. Despite being some of the uglier like secret rares or rares, I guess, with the primes, kind of that close-up view, I think it brought a lot of interesting stuff to the table.
It definitely did. So let's jump into our last topic for the day before questions, and that is the upcoming set release on this Friday, Champions Path. So for the uninformed, Champions Path is the quote-unquote bonus set for the year. Every year, Pokemon will do like an additional set around this time. We've had Hidden Fates, we had Shining Legends, and Champions Path is the newest iteration of that. We got a couple new cards, some reprints of old cards, the shiny Charizards VA and Rainbow Charizard VMAX for the collectors out there. And overall, it's a fun little romp in the Pokemon trading card game world. JW, is there anything you're especially excited for in Champions Path?
I think the Charizards both look beautiful. I just want to say that. Like the older I get, the more I understand collecting. I used to not be that into collecting, and then recently there have just been cards. I showed you earlier today. I bought the Lenticular Deoxys from a few episodes ago. I was like, it was a card that it came on sale, and I was like, it just seems really nice. And I don't often do that kind of stuff in terms of buying cards, but I understand now why people do it, because the shiny Charizard just looks amazing in the set. And like the Rainbow Rare VMAX, like looks so good. And then there's another card coming out soon, the Pikachu VMAX. Looks amazing as well.
I love that. Yeah, I'm getting those.
Yeah. And so I'm like really digging the art that they're coming out with here recently. And I can understand that, you know, people just want to get their hands on those Charizards. They look awesome.
I will say, for all the times I've ragged on VMAXs, they have really nice art as on the whole. Like all the VMAXs look super cool.
Yeah.
So yeah. I can't hate them for that. Are there any of the new cards that you think might have a splash? The Gardevoir, the Dreadnought?
Yeah, we were talking a little bit. Yeah, we were talking a little bit about those. I do like the Dreadnought. I think it probably goes into an ADP style deck, just replacing Zacian. It has a little bit more health, which would be the reason you would want to play it over a Zacian. You know, in the mirror match, a Zacian can just get, you know, one shot in return by an opposing Zacian. So potentially Dreadnought gives you a little bit more stability for like a mirror match. Gardevoir seems fine, like seems good. I'm interested for sure. But really, I mean, you're a collector, I think, if you're buying this set in bulk for sure.
Yeah, I tend to agree. I don't think there's any card that really sticks out in this set. Honestly, the card that sticks out the most to me is that like mysterious can or whatever.
The one that heals off psychics.
Yeah, the fact it has a secret rare is just so funny to me that I kind of just want one.
Yeah, for sure.
It's like one of the funniest cards.
It's like there's some specific name. What's it called? It's not like Stinky Tin Can, but it's like something just like really disgusting.
Yeah, it's got like an awful name.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think it's so funny. I think the art on it is very funny. I think the fact that it has a secret rare is extra funny. So I kind of just want one of those.
Yeah.
It's like Suspicious Can, maybe? Suspicious? I don't know. Are you looking it up?
I'm trying, yeah. So.
I had Pokebeach up earlier. I should have kept it open.
That's okay. Oh. I'm looking.
Yes.
Oh,
yeah.
Strange Canned Food.
Strange Canned Food. That's so good.
Yeah.
That's better than anything I would have ever thought of. That's so good. That is so good. So yeah. That's definitely my favorite card in the set. And honestly, that one's like close-ish to being playable.
Sure.
More than some of the others.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, there are a few other interesting things. You know, obviously, all the Vs are going to be somewhat viable in the sense that they just have enough health to like potentially survive enough turns to win a game. But yeah, I mean, it's an interesting little set that certainly won't make that much of a splash competitively. I think there's a lot of things that you don't need in terms of competitive play. But I think one thing that we do need to talk about that's a little item that is in the set is the Rotom phone. Look at the top 5 cards and choose one card you find there and then put it on top of your deck. So that's a little consistency boost card that could be pretty interesting.
Yeah, it's kind of cool if you play like the Oranguru in your deck. It's kind of a Magcargo type combo where you you draw like the card that you choose.
Right.
It works best in cards that are probably like jam packed with consistency, right. And you know, you play a Rotom phone, you use a Oranguru to draw hopefully one of your high count items or cards that's really easy to find.
Yeah,
I do kind of like the card. I don't know if it'll see an extreme amount of play, but I think it has potential.
I mean, it kind of reminds me of Trainer's Mail, and something that we've been missing in this format specifically is that item-based consistency. We lost Acrobike.
Yeah, I was just about to say,
you know, we lost a few other cards, and so that to me is a way to introduce a little bit more item-based draw. Another card that I've seen some players really talk about, especially at the beginning of this format, when players were discussing Decidueye, was that, well, maybe, you know, there will be a card in the future that is a little bit better in Altaria, having that same kind of ability that Decidueye has, where it can't be damaged by Pokemon V or Pokemon GX. And the difference there is that it's a stage 1 as opposed to Decidueye being a stage 2. And so maybe there's a little bit more viability with the wall-esque strategy. You look at certain decks like hit and run decks like a Greedent, for example. Not that Greedent saw any play in this format, but you also have to think like the difficulty in setting up a Decidueye was certainly one of the hindrances to a deck like Greedent being successful. And so you look to add just a few more walls like that. It's something that I welcome. I think that's a good thing for the game. We've seen Decidueye do pretty well, all things considered, in this current format. And so I welcome, an easier Decidueye, like a way to get out something that has that same ability that's been super strong in this format, and just being able to get it out a little bit more consistently.
Yeah, just wait for the Hoopa, man. Just wait for the Hoopa.
Yeah, the basic with the same ability, right?
That'll come towards the end of the block, though, right?
Yeah, right.
Yeah, I think Altaria is cool. Definitely easier to splash into decks than Decidueye.
Yes.
I mean, that goes without saying, right?
Yeah, no doubt.
I think it still has the problem where there are certain decks that wall strategies are still ill-equipped to beat. Namely, thinking of stuff like Centiskorch or ADP with one prizers.
Sure.
But still cool. I want to see more alternative strategies rise up over the course of this metagame. And I think as cards are injected into it through the sets that are coming out, including Champion's Path, that'll become more and more of a thing.
Yeah.
Any other Champion's Path cards catch your eye?
Nothing that I particularly like. Those were the cards that I was either really excited about myself or have heard about that I think have some amount of viability.
Cool. So let's just jump right in then to viewer questions. So if you do have a question and you're watching live on Twitch, feel free to drop it in the chat. We'll answer a couple more before we hop off for today. As always, we appreciate your viewership and listenership. If you're listening on iTunes, feel free to leave a review. It helps us out a lot. And we'll get right into the questions now. So Mirror Dove asking about the Altaria and Champion's Path. Yep, there is an Altaria. Like JW said, it has a very similar ability to Decidueye's, only different in name, where it is safe from Pokemon V and GX. So,
yeah.
Cower and Fear ADP.
What's that?
Cower and Fear ADP decks that don't play the Duraludon.
Exactly.
If they do play the Duraludon, though, that's unlucky.
Yeah. I mean, we're looking at, Champion's Path coming out in a couple days. And then we also have Vivid Voltage coming out here in, the December or November set? So
yeah,
a few new sets. I haven't really seen too much from Vivid Voltage that I am geeked about that should, flip the format on its head by any means. But still, new cards, more cards, always nice to have.
Yeah, apparently they're doing a 25th anniversary set too in February on Pokemon Day. So I'm curious what that'll be.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I can't wait. I really enjoyed, when they had Evolutions come out. That was the 20th anniversary. Evolutions and Generations and all that.
Yeah, they both came out. Yeah.
And then they had some more products like during the 15th anniversary they had like a Pikachu product, or was that also 20th anniversary? Do you remember the Silver Pikachu?
The Silver Pikachu was 15th. Yeah.
That was 15th. Okay. And then they've just had different little special things that are absolutely amazing. I have loved all the kind of promotional items that they've done for the anniversary. So really excited to see what they have in store for us here with the 25th.
I just hope there's a cool Pikachu card.
That Pikachu V looks insane, bro.
I love Pikachu V Max, man. He's huge.
Yeah, the V Max, but the V looks great also.
I know they both look good, but the V Max is just so big.
Yeah, for sure. We also have a question here from Ryan. How do you feel about the Players' Cup changes? Are you planning to participate? I think the changes, if I had to grade them on like a 5 out of a 5-star scale, I would say 5. I mean, it was exactly what we needed in terms of, everyone being equal and everyone playing at the same level. The tournament keys, great idea, perfect execution. I think being able to give every single person 50 and that's their, allotted amount. I think it's going to work out really well. In terms of are we planning to participate? We definitely are. I cannot wait to
Yeah, for sure.
potentially stream some of the Players Cup. I probably won't do all of it. Like I'll probably do most of my Players Cup participation just on my own off stream. But yeah, I'm stoked to participate. And I can't wait to compete.
Sounds like you're afraid of stream snipers, man.
Yeah, dude, I'm so afraid of stream snipers, bro.
Yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to it too, but nobody's allowed to play Mad Party counters on ladder or on the
There you go.
tournaments while I'm doing it.
Yeah, you heard it here. Nobody can play against Riley, at least. You can't play ADP.
Let's see, Mirror Dove, with the rise of non-VGX decks recently, like Mad Party and Aeropod, do you think these decks actually have a chance in the meta, or are they currently just tier 2 as is? They're pretty much capped at tier 2 or lower because ADP just beats them so consistently. Yeah, I mean, and the thing is, like, the decks like that always will sacrifice some amount of consistency to the 2 prize and onwards decks. So stuff like Eternatus, even though in theory it should have rough matchups against these 1 prize decks that can 1 to 2 hit KO Eternatuses, it doesn't always end up that way because they are just so consistent and will do the same thing they want every single game. Or close to every single game.
Well put. Well, great, Riley. I think that will conclude our episode for this week. It's been another good one. Good app.
Good app, man. Yeah, well, thank you so much to everyone who watched again. Thank you to Azul for the raid as we got towards the end of the stream here. And stick around if you're watching live, and you'll get to see JW stream some Poke.
Thank you again for watching, guys. We'll talk to you soon.